Hello and welcome back to our interviews with viewers, members and colleagues across the world. It's a pleasure for me to introduce you this morning to Tobias Schoenborn from Point for Mobility, which is a subsidiary of VisionPoint. We'll get into that in a second. Tobias, you're based in Germany. Whereabouts in Germany are you?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm actually based in Bonn, so the former capital, close to Cologne.
Lovely part. Nice. And tell me, I mean, we're fascinated across Europe. You're really in the process of stage one of opening back up. How are things right now in Germany?
Yeah, things are getting back to normal, to standard. Like the shops are already open, like public transport is working again, and actually school is slowly open. So the classes graduating this summer, they are now back in school. And I also heard this morning the news that the kindergarten is opening slowly again. So hopefully like in July latest, everything will be back at standard. But of course it depends that the situation is not getting worse again. So this is the challenge we will face within the next week or 2 weeks, to see how this affects the corona numbers, like if it will increase or drop down again.
Absolutely. I mean, it's fascinating how different governments have taken different approaches. But I mean, you know, your government has. Oh, I just wanted to ask you first: is this a state-by-state thing, or is this across the whole of Germany?
It's actually a state-by-state thing. So the federalism is very popular in Germany, and the Germans are very proud of it. But the governments try to give like a direction where people can, or the governments can go to. And right now we also see a bit of a challenge, like between also like North Rhine-Westphalia and Bavaria, for example, who is opening up first, like the stores. And luckily for me, myself, like Bonn, they try to open everything as soon as possible. And other countries like Bavaria, they are a bit slower and just starting like a week later or 2 weeks later to open up again shops and so on.
And are there any social distancing restrictions that are still in place, even though the opens?
Yeah, like still it's not allowed to be in groups outside. Only like you need to take the measurements, like that is a minimum 2 meters to another person. And also right now, it started yesterday, that you need to wear like a mask if you want to go shopping or use public transport, and you see more and more people just wearing a mask outside.
It's very interesting because, again, you know, I know Germany well, and it's, you know, obviously it's famous as a very organized country. So from the point of view of things like being on the public transport system, is there, you know, people are sticking apart, they're staying the distance from each other, even on the U-Bahn, or is that possible?
Yeah, not everywhere. Like in public transport, of course, it can be very crowded, but still, like public transport, it's usually just operating like on the weekends, so it's not like frequently, like trains are not frequently driving around. And like also interesting, if you go like on the weekend to a bakery, for example, there are very long queues because the people they take the 2 meters distance very seriously, and sometimes when you arrive at the bakery, it says, "Oh my God, it takes looks like you need to wait an hour because the distance is so long."
Because the distance is so long, but it doesn't take too long. It's not so bad. So tell me, what has been the impact on your business, and when did you, at what stage did you start putting contingencies in place?
Yeah, just for explanation, actually Point for Mobility is, as you mentioned, the global mobility brand of VisionPoint, and VisionPoint is like a German visa provider. Like our main part of the business is still like visa services, consular services, and also now like the posted workers. Mm-hmm. And for visa, we actually we experienced a slowdown in business in January, like when the Corona thing happened to China, the numbers dropped dramatically, and from China, like no visas application took place. And then also with the posted worker, we experienced pretty much in the beginning the slowdown, because when it started to happen that in Italy the coronavirus like spread, the numbers of travels within Europe dropped dramatically. So a lot of companies said, we don't going to go to Italy, then we don't going to go to Madrid, and so it continued and it slowed down dramatically. So we were actually pretty much in the beginning infected. And
Yeah.
for, of course, immigration, relocation business, it takes a bit longer until we will see the change. And we still have a lot of business for immigration relocation because the assignments are still taking place. They are just moved forward to a later stage when people will arrive. But I'm pretty sure that next year, when companies will make new budgets and will decide on how much budget they will spend on expatriates, that then the numbers will drop dramatically because people or organizations will only send, for example, half people across the world and not 100 anymore, but then only 50. So
it's really interesting, isn't it? Because again, you're talking with your colleagues and we're talking with Euro members everywhere, and it's impossible to know. But yeah, I mean, that's what people are planning for. But on the other hand, if companies, if it depends how quickly confidence returns, I suppose.
Yes, it's on the one side, the companies, organizations need to decide, and on the other side, maybe the assignees, they are not willing anymore to travel to China, for example, to live there because they think it's from the health system not secure anymore. Or the same in the US, that people are very worried about the health conditions and don't want to take the assignment anymore.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So tell me, just for those people outside who don't know, can you just briefly explain the posted worker scheme and what impact that had on you?
Yeah, good point. Actually, the posted worker thing is within Europe, with the expansion of the European Union to the Eastern European countries like Romania, Bulgaria, for example, a few years ago, there was a conflict of interest, especially like governments like for France, Austria, Switzerland, obviously, and are very worried that Eastern European people will come to the Western European countries and flood the market with like cheap labor, blue-collar workers, for example. So that's why they first of all installed the minimum salary, and then later on continued with the notifications. So now whenever, for example, a German technician is going to Spain to do some commissioning work, to install a machine, for example, so he's productive, we need to do a notification to the Spanish authorities. And this is like the case for all countries. So whenever like a person from Denmark is going to Italy or a person from Romania is going to the Netherlands, then the notification is needed within Europe. And this is more for business travelers, not expatriates, because business travelers go there for a week. And it's also from the numbers like totally different in comparison to expatriate services. Because for business travelers, we receive like 300 orders a day in comparison to maybe 3 new initiation for immigration relocation cases a day.
It's really interesting, isn't it? How, when those rules were brought in, the expectation was, that, like you say, the labour market would change across Europe. And of course now, pretty well, the only flights coming into my local airport, which is London's Stansted, are actually workers coming from Eastern Europe, because otherwise we won't have a harvest. It's just, you know what I mean? It's really interesting that political dynamic shifted. Yeah.
No, there's a big shift, and also interesting from like a sales perspective. We were in touch with many organizations, and with us, first time, the people from business travel and global mobility were sitting together on the same table, and they say, hey, how are you? We are working together for 10 years in the same organization, but never catch up before. So it was quite funny to bring together these people from one.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really interesting. That's really good. So we were talking about the relaxing of restrictions. In terms of your organization, are most of you working from home? And obviously you've got children and they're at home right now. So how's that worked out in the company?
Yeah, a lot of people are working from home, or actually for us, like for the visa business and posted worker business, the people are on short work, so they don't work at all. And luckily we have a good social government who is kind of helping out with covering those charges. So they paying the salary and they paying the social contributions we need to make. And so a major part of our people are not currently working, and we just slowly start to bring back people to the office to work. And maybe they start with only 20%. But I think it will take until the end of the year until everybody is back on full 100% within the organization.
That's fascinating. And has the government put any time limits yet on, how long they will continue to provide social support for people's salaries and things?
No, actually, it was very generous even before. So you
Yeah.
have like up to a year, and
Okay.
so it's not like limited to 3 months like in other countries. So it's. I hope we don't need to fully take like this whole 1 year for the short work. But on the other side, they also put a lot of other measurements in place. For example, that they are now discussing about increasing the salary they receive, because usually it's limited to like 60% of the net income, and they want to increase it to like 80% after 3 months. This is currently a discussion here. And then it's other social or other measurements, financial measurements they put in place.
It's so interesting when I've been talking to people, and I mean, you've been watching the news too, how that varies so hugely from country to country, even within the European Union. I was talking to our president in Denmark, very similar system to Germany, very similar system to the UK. And then, talking to our colleagues in Italy and our members in Italy, it's a very different situation for them.
Yeah, true.
So is that, sorry, go on.
No, I can imagine it's totally different in all the European Union, but that's, I think, also within Europe, at least the governments talk to take kind of the same measurements for all of European countries at least.
Yeah, I know, interesting. And then you look at, there's a lot of cultural stuff to this as well, because again, talking to our colleagues in the United States, as you know from the figures, the approach that's been taken there is very much in line with American philosophy of, one day you have a job, the next day you don't, and you find another one, and there has been no protection. So in terms of how, like, if you could take the temperature of the morale of the people of Germany, are people coming out of this and thinking, okay, we see the light now at the end of this tunnel?
Yes, there is the light you see out there, but people are very careful, and also the politicians, they kind of daily announce, be careful that we don't have to like fall back, that numbers increase again, and we need to shut down again the government or the economy. So people are getting back normal, and also, after 6 weeks now, the frustration level is very low or high, depending on on which side you look at it. And people, especially with children, are kind of getting to their limits. Like myself, I have 3 little children at home, and it's a tough time to work full time, and then you have the kids at home all day. And this is very tough.
It is. It's very tough, and it's not. It's like yourself. It's not what any of us planned. When you decided to have children, you made very specific decisions about childcare and whether you would both continue working, and all those decisions were just suddenly thrown out of the window, which is very destabilizing.
Yeah, I guess nobody planned with it, and obviously, of course, everybody would think it would be better if the situation just continued as it was. Yeah. Definitely.
So in terms of your next steps, it was interesting to hear you say, you're looking as an organization at bringing people back, but on quite a long-term basis. For the next couple of months, how do you see things progressing for you at Point for Mobility?
Very good question. We are actually looking like each week or each day actually at the news, what happens in Europe. So there will be a few important decisions beginning of May if borders will open again. We notice now from our clients that they want to travel, that they want to send people around the world, but they cannot do it because the borders are closed and quarantine is an issue. So especially for posted workers, for example, or for business travelers, if they go 1 day to France and then they come back, they need to go into quarantine for 14 days, which is not really possible. And so it will be very exciting or very interesting in terms of borders opening, and then second on the quarantine measurements the government will take place.
Yeah.
And I think once this opens up, like the economy will slowly start again to increase the volume in every aspect. And what worries me a bit more is actually the authorities, whether it's like the German like immigration office or the consulates, for example, how they will catch up with the work, especially the work which wasn't taken care of within the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
This will be funny.
That is, but you're right. That's a huge challenge. There was two things I want to pick up on there. The first is, it's so interesting you're saying about borders being closed, because I mean, from the news that I'm reading, that's how things were. But our strategic consultant for quality and our quality seal, Martina Schade, who's in Frankfurt, her daughter was studying in London at King's College, and obviously she went home to Frankfurt just before the lockdown in London. And I said to Martina last week, how's Clarissa? I know her well, and she said, oh, she's gone back to London. I was like, what? She said, yeah. So there's two Lufthansa flights a day from Frankfurt. She booked a flight. She got on the plane. She went back to her apartment. And, so there are some things moving. But like you say, it's different borders, isn't it? It's not France, which is locked down. It's not Spain. It's not Italy.
Yeah, definitely. We need to see. And if you see, like, for example, Czech Republic, they announced that they want to keep the borders closed for a year.
For a year?
How will they do it? Yeah, how will they do it?
Well, I mean, the implications are huge, aren't they? Because again, I was talking with Susanna Born, who's in Madrid, one of our board members, and she was saying that the other point you made about the backlog that's going to happen within the consulars and within the immigration system, she said it's amazing. In Spain, because of this, for the first time, they've actually made the immigration process an online process. And she said, and all my colleagues in Spain were all delighted to hear this, but she said, they're not going to continue it when this is over. They're going to go back to face-to-face.
Yeah, that's a big positive thing I see about the crisis, that the digital inventions, or the digitalization of everything will make huge processes, like what we do with the video conference. It's nowadays common, but it wasn't common before. And I hear from people working first time from home ever in their life, where I say, well, that's actually standard, but you see it's not standard for a lot of companies.
Absolutely. I mean, we were one of those. We all worked in the office, and we've all come to the conclusion as a team, we don't need an office now. I mean, that will save a huge amount of money. So yeah, I mean, it does raise an awful lot of things to tell you. Tobias, I'd love to come back and talk about this in a month or so and see, where we are, hopefully with, Germany having no second wave, touch wood, and how processes and things are opening back up, because I think it's really interesting from your point of view that we're talking about those very hard-edged processes of visa and immigration posted workers that really impact our industry hugely. So that would be great.
And I'm also, what you mentioned, very optimistic that a lot of processes will then continue online, especially with the authorities. Like on the one hand, you say Germany, very economic, strong country, but on the other hand, like a lot of processes are not digital or not online available now. And hopefully this will now change faster than before.
Yeah, I think that's you're quite right. I think we're going to see quite a revolution in that from so many perspectives as well. I mean, certainly here in the UK, finally access to healthcare can now be dealt with online. You can go to, which is completely different to how it was. And they're talking about even having, instead of going to see your doctor at the local surgery, that you'll do it like this. All over the world to save money and time.
Which would be impossible before Corona, like definitely.
Thank goodness for Zoom. Tobias, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. We'll catch up in a month, 6 weeks. But in the meantime, I wish you all the very best to you and your teams for the continued opening up of Germany and how you plan now for the next few months. So all the best.
Thank you, and same for you. Stay healthy.
Stay well, stay healthy. Take care. Bye bye.